There you go. It's 10:10.
Good morning. Taking this meeting live, so we'll call it to order. Sorry for the confusion. I'm not able to get on from the link, so I don't know. Could be operator error. I don't know what's going on there. You look at the agenda. I guess we gotta approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Make a motion to
Yes.
approve the minutes.
Okay. There's been a motion to approve.
Mike moved to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
A second.
Dr. Craddock, second.
Is there any other discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any
Unanimous.
opposed? All right. Thank you.
Motion carried.
Now, Rita, what's next on the agenda?
Okay.
Review,
Okay, here we go.
sorry.
On the agenda is the review of the March and April financials. March and April 2024 financials.
Now, Rita got those out so that everybody have a chance to look at those.
Did everybody have a chance? Yeah, they can hear you and they're saying yes.
Anything jump out that you guys want to ask about, questions?
No questions.
If there are not any questions, then I think that we just need to have a motion to accept these for approval at the board meeting later today.
So moved.
Mike moved. Is there a second?
A second.
Alicia, second.
Is there any other discussion?
No other discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the financials are accepted. Rita's Chip on
Now-
here?
Yeah, Chip is on here. And I did send out a copy of the letter from the Department of Revenue. And if you want, you can turn it over to Chip to speak to that
Yeah,
and address any
Chip.
questions.
yeah, Chip, just elaborate on that letter a little bit for us.
Sure. So they, Department of Revenue, sent out a letter dated April 25th, 2024, where they basically they've concluded their findings on the base year calculations for real property tax, sales taxes, and state individual income withholding tax. So everybody has a copy of it. Happy, there's not a ton of insight we can provide on it because it's Department of Revenue's information, but this is the base year and will be used to judge the increment. It'll be what subsequent years are compared to when adjusted for inflation. It'll be used to calculate the increment due to the partnership. And I don't have any personal comment on them. It's really hard to say what they mean without having another year to compare to it, but that's what the base year is. So I have talked with Gary Morris, the Department of Revenue, and the plan is they are assessing the January 1 so this is information from January 1 to December 31, 2022. That's the base year. They are working now on calculating what the numbers look like for each of these three taxes for January 1 to the period ending December 31st, 2023. So it is his anticipation that they would have something this summer, and with the aspirational goal of coming to meeting with the Finance Committee at the July Finance Committee to present their findings and answer questions that might arise to the Finance Committee first, And then, if possible, coming in person to the board to address it in person with the board. This is all very important information. They understand the need for the finance committee and the board to have a great understanding of what these figures mean, and then communicating clearly with the public, what they mean. So the game plan would be that, Gary and his team would attend by Zoom, if you will, a Zoom invite for the July Finance Committee meeting. Again, come in person. He needs to get clearance to be able to do that, but he is operating under the assumption that he will get that, and that's the plan. So that's the TIF letter, William.
So Chip, at the end of the day, man, we'll have some numbers. He won't meet with us, hopefully July, but I mean, if it, sometimes these things get, they get busy, and if it doesn't hit, August, but when he has the numbers, he's going to come in here and he's going to meet with us, and we are hopeful that it will be in July.
Correct. They just want to make sure that they've presented on how many constituents and companies that they're dealing with, to get the information. They want to make sure that, they don't have to come back at a later date and provide a correction because there was some more information that was found later that could have been avoided at the front end. They understand the need for the partnership board to have confidence in the community with information presented to them, particularly as it relates to money. So he's acutely aware of that. Again, working towards an aspirational goal of July, though, which is, encouraging for me.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Chip on this?
I had sent some questions by email. It was earlier this morning. I don't know if you've had a chance to see those.
Yeah. So some of them I'm not going to be able to answer, Mike, because they're Department of Revenue stuff, but let me pull your email up real quick. The real property seems kind of low. Is there a separate metro local component? Well, I can't comment on like if it's low or not. In terms of property tax, that's the most straightforward calculation the Department of Revenue has. It comes straight from the PBA. The Jefferson County PBA provides that information to the state, and Richard Dobson's the individual that's in charge of that figure. And it's the first one they have clarity on because it's in Kentucky. It's pretty straightforward how PBAs report assessments. So that is not, in Kentucky, it's not, property that it's the properties are not assessed at market value. Like, oh, I can sell my home for $150,000 or $250,000. It might be assessed at something a little less than that. That's how we do it in Kentucky. Usually there's assessment every 4 years too, Mike. I'm not sure when the last time, I don't know if all 13 square miles are, the plan is they generally do 1/4 of the county.
It was last year that they were
Okay.
reassessed, which is why we had the concern about getting our tax lending program in, because even though we hadn't started investments, there was a reassessment after 2021, so there was going to be an increase. So this should reflect the most recent assessment, and all of the development area is in that quadrant, the same quadrant for the PBA.
Okay, so Amy, if just to be sure here, so January, the base year is January 1 through December 31 of 2022.
Yes, and that was the year they reassessed.
They reassessed by July of that year.
Yeah.
July of that year. Okay.
Until 2023.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they reassessed in 2022 for tax year January 1, 23.
Yeah.
22,
So
they be on
Which-
2021's assessment.
Which is a good
Yes.
thing. You want your base year to be low, because in subsequent years, you hopefully are higher and you get a bigger increment.
Now, my big question with the real property tax, and we'll have to get this from revenue, is there is a, metro property tax component and there's a state ad valorem tax component, because there actually is a state ad valorem tax that gets paid. Does this include both, or is this just the state portion? It should be both.
I think it's
And
both.
they were supposed to combine them, but we just need to confirm that.
I'm gonna say it's both.
I mean, I'd feel more comfortable if I knew like how many properties were counted so that we could do an average and, cross-check that way.
I mean, he'll have, can we get that information or how? Do they typically give that information?
When we sat down with them, when Laura and Rita and I went to the Department of Revenue in Frankfurt and sat down with the commissioner and the director and all the staff, Richard Dobson addressed the property assessments. And as I said, Richard, it was there's 25,000 parcels.
And I think in a
25,000
presentation,
property.
Chip, won't they go
What's
over
that?
that?
What's that?
When they do a presentation or when Gary
Yes.
Morris comes to the table, I think they will articulate all of that. And then my question is, not all, in this particular assessment, you don't have a lot of the new stuff that's in there. So Mike, that may be like the Opportunity Campus, the hospital, none of that is included because it wasn't in
I'm aware of
place.
that, but let's say it's, 1.7 for 25,000 properties. That's an average of $68 per property. Which I know school taxes and some other stuff isn't included. I'd have to back out what the average property value of that is. But that still seems kind of low.
Yeah, and I think it's good to go through that exercise because we have an obligation under the local participation agreement to, check and confirm. And obviously our ability to do that is somewhat limited because we can't get individual tax data under the statutes. That wasn't included here. And even if we could, we lack the capacity to truly do our own calculation, but we do have an obligation for the partnership to do some due diligence into this. So hopefully Gary can give a little more parameters so we can do those kinds of just double checks for our own, under our own statutory obligation and our obligation under the agreement with Metro.
And if we have,
Do we
if
need
they're
to,
planning on-
let them know ahead of time that some of the questions, so they come prepared
Yes.
when they're
Mhm.
there, or how? You know what I mean? Just to make sure that they have the information at that time.
And maybe, Amy, it might be good for you to compile,
Yeah,
like questions, like when it comes from, like at the board meeting today, if there's more questions, Mike's email, I think you may have been copied on it. or
yeah, I got
Ron.
Mike's email.
Yeah, so maybe from your space, we could have a list of questions that can be presented to them. Now, Chip, my other question is, you mentioned July, I probably missed that because I was into the Candy Bowl. But is June an option for, is June an option? June is
No.
not an option.
No, they won't have confidence. I mean, he said July just because they want to have confidence in the numbers. And in fact, in kind of my head, what I'm thinking is, in my experience with this type of information, it would probably be best that we do, let Gary present to the finance corporation first. Make sure the finance committee is 100% confident and comfortable with what's being presented before putting Gary Morris and the Department of Revenue before the board.
Okay.
That's just a suggestion I have. Take it for what it's worth. But this is, on one hand, it's the Department of Revenue's figures. No one is gonna get inside the Department of Revenue and tell them what their figures are. We have to have, in my view, the partnership has to have a board that has confidence in its finance committee's understanding of these figures. So if that takes a meeting and a pre-meeting with Gary Morris in June to talk through it, and then another meeting in July to talk through it, that's what I'll work towards is, making sure the finance committee is confident. Because when he does get before the full board, man, that would be nice to have the finance committee have his back when he presents.
Right. That makes sense.
Just a
Yeah.
suggestion.
Definitely.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I would just make sure that he has any questions, and I think that Mike sent some. And anybody else have anything? We can get those sent and just make sure we have everything where he's ready to address the questions that we have.
You guys might not have questions until you know what the numbers are, so that, if he's not providing numbers till July, then maybe he talks in July, and then, I just, we operate on their.
And anything about the base as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I think we've got to make sure we're all good with the base before we start talking
Yeah.
about
Right.
the increment
Exactly.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah, because my other question on this is local occupational tax in the state withholding tax number, or is it not here? Because that's normally done through withholding, not for everybody, but if you're a W-2 employee, it is. And where does that come up? Because that's a component that I don't see on the letter broken out.
yeah. There's not a June, is there a June finance committee meeting?
Pardon me?
We can have one. We may not have it scheduled yet, but yeah.
What, a June meeting?
Yeah,
Yes.
More than likely, we're gonna have a June meeting. Yes.
Yeah.
It's not on the schedule, but we're gonna mention that today.
Okay.
Yes, which will
well,
be the 24th, the fourth Monday.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
so we can count on that.
All right, maybe what would make sense is, I can see if Gary can present at that meeting, just be there to answer some questions. You all will have had time to look at some of this stuff and ask some questions about the base, and we can use that June finance committee meeting to build on understanding at the finance committee level.
Oh, okay, sorry, the June meeting I was mentioning is a board meeting. Are you asking if there's a June finance committee meeting?
Right, June
We
finance.
will have one and we can schedule it. And if it
Okay.
needs to be scheduled at Gary's convenience, because it's not on the books yet. I was
Okay.
speaking of board meetings. So yeah, we could schedule it based on his schedule.
Okay. All right. I'll coordinate that email with you, Rita, just so
Okay.
you're in charge of the calendar.
That'd be great.
And
Yeah, I think that'd be good, so we can just get questions on the base, understand that, and then moving forward, I think that'll help us understand and hopefully not have too many questions with what they find out. If we understand the base, they're gonna be looking at the same things. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
yeah, the pardon my cough there. The other question, the second question, Mike, you asked about is it the state withholding, and you says it for residents living in the area or employees earning wages in the area. And Gary said it's employer reported, and it's for employers that are paying wages for services in those 13 square miles. And there are exemptions,
What is
Indiana.
it, Mike?
What's that?
I said, that's what I thought it was, but it wasn't clear by the letter.
Yeah. All right. So, and there are some, there's just some caveats to all of this that's best if Gary addresses them. And again, that'd be something, these are perfect questions for him to talk through in June. He wants to have a sort of, for the board presentation, he'll have a PowerPoint presentation to be educational in the explanation of it, but we can use the finance committee to be the guinea pig to, ask questions and see how he needs to tailor his board presentation about all this information. And then you asked third question you asked about, you put together a spreadsheet for TIFs, and, what's typical for TIFs in this region, TIFs do have a base year that is adjusted by an inflation. It's the consumer price index is what they use. That's sort of nationwide. They typically have a base that increases with inflation, but this is an unusual TIF. It's 13 square miles. It does have what they call the inflator right now for the base. The Arena Authority, for example, does not. They had that initially had it and then removed it because it just wasn't, the increments weren't, the increases in the taxes weren't, outpacing the base year when adjusted for inflation enough such that they cut the base year and got rid of the index. So what's typical, I would say, is whatever is needed to make this thing work, the state's probably going to do eventually, is my guess.
Right. That's why I don't want people, look, man, we look at this and it's not a reason to be alarmed from a standpoint of it not coming back the way that we want, but we just may have to make some adjustments. That's what we did with the Arena TIF, and I'm not saying that we'll have to do that with this TIF, but it's possible that we will to try to make sure that we get the increase in the increments that that we're looking for.
Okay, I mean, I'm gonna share my screen. I think the concern is if it's not, so none of this adjusts for inflation and it's just fixed percentages. But if we're not seeing, 1.5% growth or more, we're not covering, the cash flow, and operating expenses, if we project those out for the current year. So this is best case scenario, and if I'm a little concerned if typically they're 1 to 3% a year, that may not be, that may not even cover our operating expenses. So we'd be cash flow negative. And then, if we have to throw 3 or 4 points of inflation in there, does that even give us a TIF?
Well,
My thing is that's kind of, look, man, we gotta wait till we get the numbers. There's a lot of things you can speculate on. If I understand that correctly, but when we get the numbers, we'll see what they wind up being, and then see where we have to have some conversations to make some adjustments. Is that not accurate, Jim?
Yeah, it is, and they're calculated separately. So, the real property tax, if the base year is 1.7 million in taxes paid in 2022, and next year it's 1.8 million, then you're gonna get 80% of that, 100,000. So you get $80,000 property tax check. If the withholdings is lower in the next year than the base year, you'll get 0. So you're still positive 80. The sales tax, again, is measured separately as well. That's the one that, you should see some increases, because you're gonna, well, anyway, so they're all three measured separately. CPI in 2022 or 3 was like 8%. So again, I think they just got to see what this thing, June and July, let the Department of Revenue figure out what the numbers look like. We can see what we're dealing with, and if there's issues with it not generating enough or things like that, why then we go back and reassess it. The fundamental, the high level thing to remember is the General Assembly created this as a funding mechanism for the partnership, and they're not going to just put something in place and walk away and say, well, that's the best we could do, so be it. They're high level, they were saying that we're gonna try to create a mechanism by which if there's income coming to the state, we're gonna rebate it back to the partnership and let the partnership decide how that money is invested in the 13-mile community, the 9 neighborhoods. So if they need to tweak things here to generate more increment, I believe firmly that they'll do it.
Yeah, I do as well. I think the critical thing is having that meeting that we're planning to schedule at a convenient time in June. I know we have an obligation to be prudent and to try to plan for all kinds of scenarios, but I would caution against getting too far ahead of ourselves here. Basic thing that we need to do is to have that conversation and to ask any questions that we may have of the folks when they get here in June, or if they're on Zoom or whatever. But let's not get ahead of ourselves with a possible doomsday scenario right now.
Yeah, these are good questions, Mike. I mean, these are the kind of questions Gary, when I was bringing up to him, he's, you know, he likes it because he knows that the board's thinking about it and asking questions, trying to have understanding. And that's what everyone here is doing. So, you know, I'm taking away from this finance committee meeting. I'm gonna reach back to Gary and say, hey, Gary, how about if we can, let's have a conversation with the finance committee in June, or, you know, at a time convenient for you, so we can, you know, as a small group, pick at it, ask some questions, get good understanding of it. And that will bode well for at a later date when we speak with the board to be on the same page.
And I'm not trying to create doomsday scenarios, just trying to figure out what questions need to be asked.
Yeah, those are good. They're good. And I think they'll be I'll be productive to talk with him in June. Because he'll bring his team on, like, you know, he'll bring on I said Richard Dobson. I think Richard does the withholdings or sales tax stuff. It's Tom Crawford does the property value, but he'll have his team on there, and you know, that this will be good.
Shep, I have one question. I don't know the individual you're referring to, so they might come and give all the information and give it very thoroughly. But I do know that a lot of conversations that I'm having is that people don't fully understand the tax portion of it, period. So is it possible when they come, like I hear you, I fully understand everything you're saying right now, but there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to understand the different taxes. And you say it constantly that it's the taxes paid. And some people are trying to do estimates or projections, but if nobody pays it, then it doesn't matter what the projections or estimates going to be. But if the team can just kind of make it very simple in the beginning, so that way we have a solid foundation, if that makes sense.
I think it makes tons of sense. That's why I think getting Gary to meet with you guys separately first, you know, earlier the better, will help you all set the tone for how you all think, you know, they need to be communicating with the broader board. You know, I think that would be key. And I mean, heck, you know, it's confusing for us, and we've all talked about this more than anybody, and it's still confusing. So if the finance committee gets, you know, finance committee has to be 100% on it, and then it has to be communicated a lot to the board a lot of times, because it's just a different concept that we don't deal with on a day-to-day basis. So Alicia, that's what I think. That's why I think that's a good game plan to get him come in June. You know, talk with you all. It's talking through the finance committee's understanding of things, and make sure that when he does get before the board, it's broken down into easier to understand stuff.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. I think it's real important too, and we'll talk about this in my report, and this is something I can say publicly. Don't have to go into closed session for this on the litigation, because there's an allegation in the litigation that we are taking school taxes.
Yes,
And
we are not.
We are not, because of the way our TIF is defined and designed, but other TIFs have a carve out for school taxes because it's unconstitutional to take the school taxes. We don't need that here, but there's some confusion in the community about that. I'm sure that partly, I mean, partly because of the allegation of litigation, that there is a belief that we are trying to take taxes away from the school system. So I think it's going to be real important, like you said, for everybody to have a very good understanding of not just what we are getting, but what we're not. So that there's absolutely no confusion and no heartburn about the part of the taxes that the partnership takes.
Right.
And
He's
in
like-
addition to that, Amy, I think it's important as a committee, like, I mean, this is like it's a small representation of the board and of the community. But if we have some sense of an understanding when people approach us, I think we have a responsibility to articulate clarity with regard to what we are and what we are not. And that sort of simmers things down, you know, instead of blowing it up. And I think this kind of overview at the board meeting today will be good, Chip, because the whole board has the copy of the letter. So, you know, people are, I'm sure you got other people doing calculations and things like that. So in your report, I think it will be good to set the tone for what we've talked about and decided here in finance, if that makes sense.
Right. I mean, at the end of the day, Chip, you're 100% right. We have to, as a finance committee, to understand this, and then we gotta, you know, dumb it down in a better term, layman terms, so all board members, and then there's going to be a segment of education for the public too, and we're gonna, you know, have to be able to do that as well. So, but it starts with getting them here, making sure. And yeah, Mike, I know you wasn't doing anything doomsday. You just trying to make sure that we understand it fully. So when your constituents ask you something, you definitively know how to respond. So I mean, I appreciate that.
Yeah, good questions, Mike.
Yeah, I've got it ready. I'll articulate it the way you need to, Rita and Laura, finance committee for the board later today.
Okay.
Let me ask you, do we need anything else to address on the letter? Any other questions on that?
No other questions, Mr. Chair.
All right. What's the next thing on our agenda?
Adjournment.
Well, hey, Amy, did we have anything else that we need to discuss for anything?
No, I know I was gonna say that, but yeah.
No, not that I know of.
Okay. Laura, did you have any updates or anything that you wanted to go over or anything?
No, we've covered the important matter.
And let me ask you, you know, we always get hit where, from a budgetary standpoint, Chip, and Rita, where are we and putting together some numbers on that?
We're still loading in. We'll have an update. It's all coming together. We're working on it still. Last month, we showed the grid that we were working on. So we'll have an update for the board.
Tonight? Are you talking about our next?
No, tonight. We'll have an update. I mean, because it's got to go to finance. So what we're hoping is that we'll get it to the finance committee for June. That's the reason why we'll probably have a June board meeting, because we need to have a June finance committee meeting so we can get the budget over to you, over to the committee, to vet before we do anything with the board.
Okay.
Yeah, it just takes time. We got a lot of balls in the air.
I just want to make sure that we're ready to address that.
Yes.
When it comes up.
Yes.
And then just from a standpoint, everything going good with the office and everything?
Yeah, it's coming together. We look a little sterile right now, but you know, we are getting it. And now with the technology and everything, it's working nicely. You guys look great up on this amazing screen. I don't know, at least from my angle, you do. It's just wonderful. This is the small conference room and it's very small. But we'll be doing our committee meetings from here once we get some different kind of chairs to fit the space.
Now, as far as, I know Tony Levy's helping us, but as far as our like day-to-day operational kind of finance, where are we on looking at trying to find somebody for that?
We have a plan. We're just trying to finalize conversations with the accounting firm that, Chip is working with us on.
Okay.
So we'll have a little bit more on that, but I do want to say, I'm glad you brought that up. We did file our 990.
Mhm.
Forgot to tell you guys that on the 15th of May. So we're current with that, and Alicia has given us a hand clap of praise. So that's done. Like I said, there's a lot going on. So, priorities, but we're getting there. We got the base now. We can take this conversation to another level.
Okay. Laura, did you say you didn't have anything else?
Yes, that's right.
I've got
Mike had his hand up.
So I did want to say that I did see the credit card stuff on the April financials.
Yes.
That looks great, and I think it offers a lot more clarity. So thanks for getting that squared away.
Okay, we have just a little bit that we're cleaning off of that, Mike. So this month there will be just a little bit, tiny bit of reimbursement, then everything will be totally over to the card.
To
Perfect.
Rita's point, man, look, everything's happening, a lot of moving parts, but everybody is doing what needs to be done to get us to where we need to be, and we got to be patient, and we got to trust one another as we keep progressing, so we can really execute and make happen what we want to have happen in our community. So I appreciate everybody's effort.
Thank you.
If we don't have anything else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Second.
Yes.
All right. Thanks. We'll see everybody tonight.
Okay,
All right.
thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
guys.
Craddock. Dr. Craddock, have a safe trip. I don't know that you'll be on the board meeting today, right?
I'll be in the air still.
I know you'll be in the air. You sure you can't do a Zoom from the airplane? No, I'm teasing.
Yeah, man,
I'll see. I'll check and see.
I'm teasing with you.
Where are you
Be
headed?
safe. Okay,
I'm
have a good
headed
trip.
Thank
headed to
y'all.
Hawaii.
Hawaii?
Oh,
Yes, sir.
He's going to a conference,
It's for work.
everybody.
It's for work.
Conference.
Work.
It's
That's
work.
awesome.
It's work.
No
That's
bugs.
awesome.
No
Have a
bugs.
good time.
Yes, sir. You said go who?
No bugs in Hawaii.
Oh, no bugs. Oh, yeah, no bugs. Yeah.
No
The lowest
snakes.
70, the high is 81. So good.
Oh,
Which
wow.
Oh, my
airline you going
goodness.
to?
Dreamy.
What airline are you
Uh,
flying?
I'm on Delta. We're
Oh,
going to
my
Waikiki.
favorite.
Yeah, Waikiki Beach is where we at. Be Honolulu, but Waikiki Beach is where the conference
Yes.
takes place at. Only
Yes.
for work, you all. Only for work. You know, it's a
Oh,
tough
only
trip.
for work. We understand, totally.
Hawaii's always for the pretty people, and they read it.
Gotta run.
That's how it
Bye.
goes.
Hula, 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 hula.
Safe travels.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, let me X out. Make sure we're in webinar for all. I gotta get